ways to understand this sentence of a more connected Europe. The first one is to put focus on the question of mobility, on sustainable mobility, on smart mobility, on transportation networks. Let's put it like this. And the second one is to focus more on the digital side of things, focusing more on digital connectivity and digital transition. And actually, that's a very good way of thinking, because today to discuss with you this topic of a more connected Europe, we have 3 projects and 3 representatives. And I'm really pleased to welcome our 3 speakers. The first one will be Sandor Nagy. Can you hear us, Sandor? And please turn on your camera.
Yes, I'm here. Can you see me?
Okay, yes, welcome, Sandor. And the second one will be Sophie from Ghent. Sophie, can you also turn on your camera, please?
Yes, I'm here. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Sophie. Thanks for joining us. And last but not least, Simon Saint-Georges from Rennes in France.
Hi, Simon. Hi, everyone. Good morning.
Hi, thank you very much. So just to make clear for everyone, you can of course use the chat box to ask questions to our speaker, and we will start right now with the first round of discussion, and after that hopefully we will have some times to take at least 1 or 2 questions from the audience. So Sandor, let's start with you. Correct me if I am wrong, but you are the vice-mayor from Szeged.
Indeed,
and,
yes.
And Szeged is the 3rd largest city in Hungary, right?
Yes.
Great. So let's start with you and your project, which is called SASMob, and it goes about the question of smart mobility in your territory. Could you please, I think you started almost 3 years ago, right?
Yes.
Okay, so can you please start to explain what the project is about and why you choose to focus on collaboration with private sector companies?
What we saw in the city is that much of the trips in the city are connected to work. People go to work or go home from their workplaces. And if you have a comprehensive public transportation system and a comprehensive cycling network in the city, what we have, maybe some development still necessary, but anyway, then you have to convince people to use the facilities that we already have. And seeing that we have a lot of traffic related to work, we thought that we approach the big employers or some smaller employers in the city and say them that it is in fact the HR task for you to help your employees to get to work, and we can help you in this providing information, research, some small incentives to help them to get to work in a sustainable way. And there are, fortunately, employers in the city that think that sustainable transportation is important. So they joined us, and it is very important that it was a bit of a surprise for me that even small incentives can be very helpful convincing big companies even. So where the small incentive to build a new cycle rack is in fact a rounding error in their budget. But still, it is an incentive and they will join you in the project.
Yeah, okay. And actually, from what I understood from your project, employers have to sign a mobility pledge, right?
Yes. We obviously expect them to have a long-term commitment to sustainable mobility. And this is why we provide them the survey, the mobility plan for the workplace, and these small incentives to have a new cycle rack, or for example, we provided a ticketing machine at some place for the employees, or we planned a new bus stop at some place. So this is why we think that if we put in some effort in this project, then we expect you to put in some effort in the long term as well.
Okay, and where does this idea comes from? I think you got some inspiration from the other side of the Atlantic, right?
Indeed, we saw the situation, as I mentioned, that the work-related journeys make a big part of the model, in fact, the model split. And we saw that there are some experiments in this regard in Austin, Texas, where the downtown association, which is employers association or real estate owners associations in the downtown, provides this kind of support, making surveys in the city and I mean at the workplaces, and providing mobility plans for the employees.
Okay, and on the other side of the project, because on your project there are actually different parts, and there are also, as you said, there is a part about convincing employers and private company and public sector companies also to join the program. On the other side, there is also a technical side, I think.
Yes.
You had to deploy a sensor network, right?
We obviously want to measure the results of our efforts, how behavior changes in the city, and therefore we work together with the university. They have a development to provide sensors that use camera images and Wi-Fi IDs to measure the traffic. And what was very important to us from the beginning is that no personal data should be collected. Therefore, no personal data comes out from the sensor system. And it was very important because in the middle of the project, the new GDPR regulation was introduced. And we had to have a lot of discussions, even with this design, with the lawyers, how to handle this situation.
Okay. So there was a discussion about the implementation of the European legal framework in your city, right?
The lawyers were interested in seeing that no personal data can get out of this sensor system. And this was the basic idea behind the design. So they had to make sure that it is not going to happen. So in the end, we could have their approval that we won't handle personal data, but still you have to go through this process that who is handling the data, who is processing the data, and make some arrangements with the actors in the project.
Great. Thank you, Sander, for these first answers. I will come back to you at the end of the session. And then I would like us to go to Belgium, actually, and to Sophie. Sophie, can you hear us?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, Sophie. Sophie Gerert, you are a project manager for TMaas, which stands for Traffic Management as a Service, right?
Yes, that's the UIA project that we were implementing in the city of Ghent, and we actually just ended our 3-year project.
Yeah, okay, so you are starting not the implementation phase because it's the end, but the transfer phase.
Yeah.
Right. So my first question for you, Sophie, is you share, I think, a similar ambition to Szeged and to this mayor sender that we just hear about how can we change people's behavior regarding mobility, right?
Yeah, we do. We also we already have quite a good modal split in the city of Ghent, but obviously you always want it to be better, and there are many ways to go about this. And the way we wanted to try in our project was to inform the citizens before they leave for their trip with real-time information, mobility information about their trip, and not just car information, but multimodal information. So that was that was a bit the core of our project.
Okay, and basically, how does it work? I mean, if I am a user of your platform, I have to sign up to say, okay, I'm taking Please try to explain how it works.
So we build a dashboard for citizens where they can find all the multimodal mobility information in different tabs, and they can just look at it, obviously, but they can also really register, and then they are asked if they want to receive notifications. And if they want to receive notifications, they can then enter their daily home to work route, for example. They also set the hour when they want to receive a notification. And they also really enter the details of their daily route. For example, I live outside of Ghent, I work in Ghent, so I go by bike, then I take the train, and then I go again by bike. So I enter this in the system. I also enter, okay, I want to receive a notification each morning. I leave my house for my trip around 8, so I give in 8 o'clock in the morning. And then 15 minutes before 8 o'clock, before I leave my house, I will receive a notification about my route. If everything is okay, there's no delay for the trains, or it's not raining, for example, then I just receive a notification saying, have a nice trip. If something has happened, for example, the train has a delay or there's some other disturbance on my route, then I will receive a link with alternatives on how to reach my destination, but using another transport mode or another combination of transport modes. So in this way, I can then decide, okay, I take this alternative, or maybe it's better today to work from home and not leave at all. So I can make a smarter choice before I start my trip.
Okay, so basically your project is trying to give people information at the right time and in the right form, I would say, at a more actionable way possible, right? Okay, great. And Sophie, one more question for you. Actually, from what I understood, in your dashboard, you include mainly data from public sources, but also from private one, right?
Yeah, we have several. We have two big data companies involved in our project. That's TomTom and B-Mobile. So they both have a lot of car data they share with us. But we also set up agreements as a city with private companies who own parkings in the city center, for example, to have real-time data about the occupation of the parkings, or also private bike sharing company that is active in Ghent. We also share their data. But with those companies, we just set up every time an agreement, and we tried to see, do you want to share very detailed data, or for the occupation, for example, only a percentage of how much free places there still are. So it's not the same detail for each data source that we can share with our citizens, but we always came to an agreement. And for our two private partners involved in the project, obviously they are competitors. So there we had to set up a very good partnership agreement between all the involved partners, that they were both comfortable in sharing their data.
Great, great. And actually, there is one question on the chat box for you. I suggest maybe before we switch to another speaker, that maybe if you can have a look. The question is, do you get updated during your journey? When you start your journey, do you provide some information?
No, we do not track people. So you really only receive the notification before you leave, and then you make your choice. But then there are no more updates following.
Okay, so it comes back to the question we have seen with Sander right now, which is also the question of privacy, and how do we ensure that we keep in line with the legal framework, right?
Yeah.
Great, and thank you, Sophie. Again, we'll come back to you for the second one question. So let's go to Rennes in France, in Brittany, actually. Simon, can you join us? Simon Saint-Georges. Okay, I
just
can't.
lost you. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Just when you started talking to me, can you repeat your question, please?
Yes, welcome, Simon. Actually, my question was, can you give us a first overview of the project? Actually, there are two differences between your project and the ones from Szeged and Ghent. The first difference is your project is not really focusing only on smart mobility, but more on data sharing platform for, let's say, energy, mobility, environmental questions, and so on. And the second one is that your project is quite young compared to the two previous one, because you are just on the first year, right?
Yes.
Okay, so Simon, let's start with you with one question actually, which is closely related with the one I asked to Sophie before, which is you plan to use also data from the private sector, right?
Yes.
And how do you plan to do that, and how is it a challenge right now?
Yes, so the platform we are trying to build is a data sharing platform so that many stakeholders, local stakeholders can share data. They can be public, private, researcher, and all kinds of stakeholders. So we have a framework for open data in France. All public bodies have to open their data. And we, for a few years now, have been able to open a lot of data, and also data from other partners and semi-public partners and entities. But now we realize that we need other data that is produced, managed by private actors. For example, local companies, associations, NGOs, etc. And they often produce data that is required, that is useful for the functioning and the improvement of public services. So this is what we call data of general interest, and there is some kind of that this is the framework of where we are working right now. So one of the challenges of our project is to create a framework that is both legal and technical, so that these stakeholders can be brought to share their data with us and with other stakeholders. And I really want to point that we don't necessarily want to open this data. We just want to somehow connect their data to a network where we can manage access rights, authorizations, and everything. So sometimes these private actors can be a bit scared because they believe we want to open it just like we open our data. But it's a bit more complicated than this, and we need some framework, and we need to build trust with these stakeholders.
Great, great. So I see, I think, some similar challenge with what Ghent already achieved. I think it would be interested to have a more closely linked discussion between the two of us. Right, and my second question for you, Simon. As I said, compared to Szeged or Ghent, your project is quite young, but do you still have some lesson to share maybe with other European cities and territories?
Yeah, well, the project, like you said, is still young. We started a bit more than 1 year ago, and probably other UIA project, it takes some time to really launch the work because of the startup phase, the initiation phase. But for 1 year now, we have been working on the definition of this data sharing platform, and we have tried to apply a co-construction method, which has worked pretty well. So I think I can share a bit about that. First, it's important, I think, to note that although the project is heavily led and funded by Rennes Métropole, the city, the metropole, we are working on an object, the portal, that is shared among stakeholders. It's outside of our ownership, if I may say. So we are building something that is shared with them, and we need a wide range of partners and other stakeholders, external inputs, So we can't do it alone. This is why we need to co-construct this. And so we are very different partners with different roles, backgrounds, different work culture. In the partnerships, research labs, associations, private companies. So we have spent some time to try and define together what this means.
So thanks again, Simon. For this last round of questions, I would like to come back to you, Sandor, and to say, actually, I have the same question for each of you, which is, so your project was financed or co-financed by UIA, but maybe more than money and financing, which is obviously a key aspect of the project. What would you say was the UIA added value for your project? And we'll start with you, Sandor from Szeged.
Okay, we obviously initiated this project because it was something that we wouldn't have done it without the support, without external support, to put it this way. But besides the money, which is very important, it was very important that we have this kind of a stamp of approval that this project went through a evaluation process, and we could say the private employers or the researchers at the university that this is something that was approved by an external body. It is interesting. It is not just me who's saying that it is a good idea, but it was approved by the evaluators of the UIA. And we also saw some examples in the past, so it was a help in developing the project as well, and it was very important as well.
Great, thank you. Same question for you, Sophie.
Yeah, I think my answer would be very similar to what Sander just answered. It was indeed, yeah, we had this quite innovative idea, and if it hadn't been for the funding and for the approval of the UIA, we would never be where we are today. So it's a very important support that you receive, not only financially, but indeed also that the idea that you have is viable, because sometimes you think maybe this is good, but you don't really know. And then when you get the approval, you know, okay, other people also believe in it. And apart from that, when you participate in an UIA project, you're in working around a certain team. For us, it was mobility, and then you get in touch with the other mobility projects, and you can also learn from each other. Even though with our other projects, there are always lessons to be learned from each other.
Okay, great. And then to you, Simon, in 1 minute.
Yes, mostly the same answer. Of course, outside of the funding, it gives us a framework where we need to evaluate and have intermediate points. So it gives us a framework to manage the project, and that's great. And of course, this credibility, some kind of visibility, both inside and outside of our organization, is really important. And being funded by UIA shows that these topics are regarded as a priority at a European level, so it's very important to us. And I wanted to say that UIA, this is just a step for us, and we will continue working on these topics after that. So it's really a very good help to launch these topics and put them at the front and start working with new partners. So very, very helpful.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you to all. Unfortunately, as we said, this session is quite short because we have to go back to the plenary station. Please note that there were 3 questions that we didn't answer right now, but maybe you, Simon, and Simon Sander, you can come back to people asking questions, because there were actually quite interesting one about the business model, or the functionality, or any measurement of any changes. Right. So thank you to all, and in less than 30 seconds, we'll come back to the plenary station. And please stay with us for the rest of this event. Bye. Thank you very much.